So this is actually a guy who Jordan sent me yesterday, and he's like, this guy makes awesome videos. You should check him out. And he happens to have a video on something that I have been interested in regards to video games, and that is Assassin's Creed Shadows. So the video is called The Assassin's Creed Shadows Situation is Crazy, and I want to watch it, so we are going to. And then I'm probably going to have to end the stream. Maybe. I don't know yet. I'll find out by the end of this video. But I haven't really read or watched any videos about this, so you guys are in for the roller coaster ride of this. Also, I think this guy makes great videos, and I'm fascinated by how he does it, and I'm trying to make my streams a little bit more like the way he does this, but we'll talk about that on another day. Let's watch this.
Weirdest in the history of the franchise.
Wait. Go back. Look at how cozy he looks. Look at this. Look at this.
So the last week for Assassin's Creed has been among like the weirdest in the history of the franchise. And frankly, it's been fascinating to watch. I've been talking about this over on my second channel, Luke Stevens Live, where I stream and do stream highlights, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all before. But while we were trying to unravel what was going on, there were all sorts of reports coming out that just further confused the issue. In case you missed it, there were initial reports from Tom Henderson that Ubisoft was canceling press previews of Assassin's Creed Shadows at the
that is never a good sign.
Very last minute, which is pretty bizarre. That doesn't really happen. As you can see, he says that according to various sources, the AC Shadows press previews were scheduled to take place next week, and the embargo date for those previews would be announced then, probably relatively soon after that. And so to cancel that at the very last minute, when people are probably packing their bags to go to this event, is pretty...
Okay, so to be clear, if you don't know what those like press briefings are, generally speaking, before a full launch of the game, this is what Call of Duty used to do. Apparently, I haven't heard anything about it this year, and it stopped when they started to do campaign early access. Like maybe a week or two before the launch of a game, maybe sometimes more, they would send out an invite and say, hey, we'd like you to come down, check out our game. Like it's a review session, so you're going to be playing the game for like 3 days straight, and we want you to be able to go back, make videos on it, and show the world what our game has to offer. Basically what he's saying is if these are canceled, people would be like going in like a week from now. And yeah.
Interesting. I can't think of a time that that's happened for other games, at least that we've heard about through leaks and stuff. So that's crazy. Can't either. Then it was announced that they were canceling their appearance at Tokyo Game Show. And you could probably hand wave away one of these things. Like if they announced that they were just backing out of Tokyo Game Show, you could maybe say the demo they had,
I don't know. I haven't looked at the news yet.
Or maybe they didn't think that the trailer they cut was that good, so they canceled it. Or maybe there's some legal issue on the side that is just not worth delving into. You could maybe excuse it that way. But when there's two instances back to back like this, the smoke starts to fill the room, and often where there is smoke there is fire, and that fire was confirmed this morning. Ubisoft corporate posted this. It is a revision to financial targets. Basically, this is something that happens when a big corporation is changing the outlook for investors. So for example, when Take-Two Interactive moved the expected release window for GTA 6 out of...
Are they actually delaying it? I was saying that as like a joke.
This fiscal year into the next one, they had all sorts of last minute bookings, adjustments, and they tempered, quote unquote, expectations for revenue because they were relying on this game generating billions of dollars. And once they move it to a different fiscal year, now they have to tell investors that that's not going to happen. And that's basically what happened here with AC Shadows. They outline how they're moving things around and that they are expecting net bookings to be significantly lower than they previously stated. And they say the revised targets are mainly a reflection of decisions taken for Assassin's Creed Shadows and the softer than expected launch for Star Wars Outlaws. Listening to players' feedback and as an illustration of our player-centric...
Okay, so they're saying it's because of low pre-orders, which makes sense because they did the whole thing where it's like the tiers of buying it were stupid. So this is karma, if you ask me.
Approach, the following important decisions relative to AC Shadows have been taken, okay? We get 3 points that are each pretty significant. For one, Assassin's Creed Shadows will now be released on Valentine's Day, February 14th of 2025, being delayed out of the November launch window
so it is delayed
into the spring.
I'm
While the
pretty
game is
sure.
feature
I'm pretty sure February is like stacked for games right now.
complete, the learnings from the Star Wars Outlaws release led us to provide additional time to further polish the title. This will enable the biggest entry in the franchise to fully deliver on its ambition, notably by fulfilling the promise of our dual
We might play that
protagonist
on
adventure
stream.
with
We might play
Nawe
that
and
on stream.
Yasuke, bringing two very different gameplay styles. So right away, they are saying, based on the launch of Star Wars Outlaws, we see that having bugs, having like crappy AI
Having an unfinished game is bad. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed?
that's broken and busted in certain missions, that doesn't work. We can't just hand wave that away. And there's other like revelations we'll just say later on that I'll get to in a minute, which are very, very telling. But I think that this is fascinating. They are saying last minute, we've just decided that we can't do this the way that we did with Star Wars Outlaws. We have to polish it and get it where it needs to.
Shouldn't that just be standard practice? Like, should it not just be like, yeah, we're going to make sure our game's not shit before we release
Be,
it?
frankly, we can't rely on like goodwill to carry the day here, which is fascinating. The second point, we are departing from the traditional season pass model. I didn't see this coming. All players will be able to enjoy the game at the same time on February 14th, and those who pre-order the game will be granted the first expansion for free. This is a change because
So they're just going over to the expansion model.
prior to this, they were doing like the early access thing where you buy the whatever pre-order season pass, whatever, and you get early access to the game maybe by 3 to 5 days, and then you get some other bonus stuff. They are moving away from that and instead releasing the game full stop for everybody on the same day. This to me seems like a direct response to the problems they had with Star Wars Outlaws, where the game became open for early access on August 27th.
Okay, Fox, I want you to expand on what you just said. The day one patch has let many developers get away with bugs and shitty games being developed. Explain what you were saying there. Give me some more information. I want to hear it.
But it didn't officially launch until August 30th. However, they ran into a problem where basically there was a progress bug where you couldn't continue the game, and to fix it, you had to delete your save file.
I've had this
people
happen
were playing
with Black
Star Wars
Ops Cold War,
Outlaws,
actually,
having
early.
pre-ordered it for early access and having to delete their save files and
So what happened, I guess I will fill you in on this. When Black Ops Cold War came out, they actually, because this was during COVID, and this is what, when I was talking about those early review events, I think that was the first year that we didn't have one. So what they did is sent out people literal PS5s to play the game on because they wanted the best possible experience. So they sent me a PS5 and they sent me Black Ops Cold War, and they said, you got like a week to play this early, make some videos on it, put them out, it'll help you out. They didn't pay me any money. They've never paid me any money, but they're like, do this. Well, I started playing the campaign and I got to the mission where you are going in the Vietnam War. And when you're flying in on that helicopter, my game would just crash every single time. I couldn't get past that section. I tried everything. I tried restarting the game, everything. And I just couldn't because it needed an update, which they weren't going to put out until the game came out. Which obviously when you're doing a review for the game can't happen. And it didn't happen to everyone. It just so happened to happen to me. And I did find a way to get past it, but I don't remember what it was.
restart the game before it even technically launched, which is it's a pretty funny bug, let's be honest. It's pretty stupid, but that seems to be probably why they are taking this step. And then the third point is crazy. The game will mark the return of our new releases on Steam day one. They are not going to be doing Ubisoft Plus launcher or whatever it's called day one, where you got to buy it there if you want to play.
Oh shit, wait, no, this is way bigger than you think, because this means you're going to be able to see how many people are playing this game. Oh.
They are trying to remove the barriers.
Fox came back and he said, basically any game that comes out has a major day one update. Yes. Most developers are using that update to continue developing the game until the game is released. Okay. So this is an interesting subject for like a video in and of itself, Fox, because that used to be a really big thing. But because like, have you ever heard the saying the game has gone gold? That used to mean that the game is finished and that they were sending it out to GameStop. But now that everyone is connected to the internet, they can put out updates on day one to kind of polish up and finish these last things, giving them extra development time. So I don't think that necessarily means this means shitty games are being developed. It means that they are using all of the time that they have, and sometimes they take advantage of that and can't finish on time, and that is what makes the shitty games.
Just put it up on Steam. Even though people are probably going to mass downvote it and rate it poorly, they're putting it up there because they need to remove as many barriers to entry as possible. They also outlined some other stuff, like they are responding to player feedback by mobilizing huge teams to work on refining the game, Star Wars Outlaws specifically, to be a strong long-term performer, and they're going to be launching that on Steam in November, mid to late November as well. And this is not the only time that a big company has chosen to forego their own launcher to bring games to Steam on PC day one. Most notably, like Dragon Age the Veilguard, they are not requiring the EA launcher to play that game. Even if you buy it on Steam, it doesn't do that weird thing where it boots to the EA launcher.
Honestly, I don't see why any company would not just use Steam.
Which is
like maybe I'm missing something.
And then launch the game. It just launches the game. And I hope this is like the new trend where we just get over all of this weird fragmented launcher crap, and we just have like platforms which are competitive. You can buy the game where you want to, but if you buy the game on this platform, that's where you're choosing to spend your money. You don't have to jump through all these hoops of like booting up 2 different launchers to get to the game. You know, it's just, I bought the game, let me just play the game. Why? Like, what are we doing?
Hey, do you want to know why I find his videos so fascinating? Because these are edited, but like I want to watch more of his live streams, because while he's talking here, watch what he does with his hand, like the hand like right below me. He has a stream deck set up right underneath there, and in the middle of talking, so it's as if I'm in the middle of talking to you and I just go like this and continue on talking like nothing has happened, and then we zoom in a little bit more and then move out a little bit. He does it so smoothly in the middle of a freaking conversation. This is what I'm saying. Like, I want to get better with this. And I also think he has transitions built into his stream and recording that he doesn't have to edit them, that the transitions just happen, and it's brilliant.
2 different launchers to get to the game. You know, it's just, I bought the game, let me just play the game.
You just did it.
Like, what are we doing? So, having said that, the delay, okay, that explains maybe why like the media events have been delayed or canceled or whatever, and then that also explains why like Tokyo Game Show, that was canceled as well. But it still is baffling because they already spent millions preparing for those preview events. They already spent tons of money on marketing materials that they probably have to reprint. I imagine they were going to do like posters and
they're going to lose money on that for sure.
Whatever stuff to market the game, and all of that is down the drain. So something happened in the last week where executives were so freaked out that they chose to lose those millions in favor of delaying the game into February, which is already pretty stacked. I mean, we've got Kingdom Come, we've got Avowed, we've got Monster Hunter now.
Tons of games in February.
Busy time, and they're kind of threading the needle with that February 14th date. So I'm so fascinated. Like, I want to know. I want to know what they are seeing that freaks them out so much. Is it that pre-orders are like really, really bad, and so they're freaked out because they're like, Star Wars Outlaws had decent pre-orders and it just didn't go anywhere? What are we going to see with this? Is this going to be like a colossal flop? I mean, bear in mind, this game could reasonably have cost Ubisoft $400 to $600 million. I mean, they could have a Concorde and a half for that price. And there's the potential that this just launches and then there's no splash. It's just like a little bloop and that's it. And I don't think they can afford to do that. But Tom Henderson, the cheeky little fella, he managed to get his hands on a copy of the internal memo from the CEO of Ubisoft.
I don't know how Tom Henderson does it, but he gets his cheeky little hands on everything. Like, he's the Call of Duty guy too for leaks. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but Tom Henderson leaks goddamn everything. He either has like more hands inside companies than a octopus, or like, I don't know.
Small. And he shared it. And, you know, there's always going to be corporate doublespeak in here. But what I find fascinating is that at one point in this memo, Yves Guillemot kind of says the quiet part out loud, the part that we all know, but the part that you wouldn't expect any executive to ever admit, even to his own teams. Let me show you. So he goes through Star Wars Outlaws, saying how they were happy with some of the reception,
This has me curious.
they specifically had some issues, focused on save issues, stealth mechanics, more frequent quest checkpoints, and better NPC AI. I'm confident these updates will significantly improve the player experience, blah, blah, blah. He then says, in today's ultra-competitive market, players expect extraordinary experiences and ultra-polished games on day one.
I mean, shouldn't everyone expect that, like, all the time? Okay, moving on.
I mean, I would say like polished, ultra-polished. I think of like Rockstar. Like if there's a bug or two I run into, it's not the end of the world. But when like stealth sequences are broken, or when I'm getting soft locked and I have to restart the console, like that is a problem, you know, I would say personally, but I don't think that would count as ultra polish, but what do I know? They continue. We need to continue to improve when it comes to fine tuning our games and delivering outstanding gameplay. This is what will enable Ubisoft to again create the best games in the industry. Consequently, we decided to delay AC Shadows to February 14th of 25. The game is already playable and of high quality and has all the features the team wanted to integrate into this ambitious experience. This unusual decision at such an advanced stage is motivated by our desire to offer an optimal experience.
There is no way that it's either one, the game was so broken and unpolished that they needed to do this. There's no way that it's just, we wanted it to be better. There's no way.
Launch on all platforms and various PC configurations, and to remove the small frictions we typically use to address in post-launch updates. And I find this fascinating. Remove the small frictions we typically used to address in post-launch title updates. So
this
like
is
they
kind of the day zero thing you're
that
talking about here.
There are issues that they've run into these frictions.
Yeah, KJS, I kind of agree with you. I think it's pre-order sales. But what are they going to do to boost pre-order sales before then? Like, they're not. So, like...
And they would typically just fix those after the game launches. You know, it's not that big of a deal. We'll get to that after launch. We just need to get it good enough and then we'll put it out there. But it's pretty clear with Star Wars Outlaws, at the very least, they are not able to consistently figure out what is a small friction and what is a big issue. Because some of these things he outlines up here, such as save issues, stealth mechanics, frequent checkpoints, NPC AI, that stuff, I'm sure those were classified before Star Wars Outlaws launched as small frictions. You know, things will fix after the game launches. Not a big deal. But down here, he's saying we just can't do any of that. We would typically fix that.
The weird part. No, they are releasing it on Steam day one now. Yeah. Like, the weird part about this to me, though, is, so you have some games, like, let's use, well, there's many we can use. I think the best example is Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk came out. Frictions are an understatement on that game, but it came out and it was crap and they refunded people, and then it came back and then it was really, really good and they made up the sales on it. So these games can launch in a shitty state, fix themselves, and then have everyone rebuy them again. But has that ever happened to a Ubisoft game? The only one that I can think of is maybe Rainbow Six.
Remove the small frictions, but at the very least, they are not able to consistently figure out what is a small friction versus a serious issue that needs to be fixed. So now they're taking
to me, Cyberpunk had the confidence to release and be like, we're going to fix this. You're still going to buy it. It's a good game. Whereas Assassin's Creed is in the other, they don't think their game's good. They think that if not enough people pre-order it, they're not going to make their money, because once it comes out, people are going to realize it sucks and then not buy it.
Approach to just polish the crap out of it before it launches to avoid any of those small frictions from being present. And I think this is good. Part of like evaluating the gaming industry, I do agree with that. When somebody does something bad, we slap them on the wrist and we say, stop it. But when they do something good, such as delaying a game to polish it and get it better
Sure,
instead of
I'm all
rushing
for
it out
that.
the door, that is a good thing. And we should praise them when they do that. I think this is good news, even though November, I think probably would have been a better time for this to release in terms of
100%.
sales leading into the holidays. From a business perspective, probably makes more sense to do it in November. The fact that they delayed it to February, I think shows, at the very least.
Bloody Viking says, when the game was initially released, my friends said that the franchise has gone too far away from the core values of Assassin's Creed. One of the biggest reasons for not buying this game is that there's a black samurai, but this is when the game just got this I find stupid. If you want to make a good argument for Assassin's Creed, why I loved Assassin's Creed is because you'd go into this game and you would have this amazing historical story about whoever. It could be a pirate, it could be whoever. They could do any sort of story, but then outside of it, there was this outer world that you were in an animus, and that was the part of the story that I wanted to keep coming back to. That's gone. And there's just no mystery. It's just a historical story at this point, and that is what they're missing out on, at least in my opinion.
A desire to avoid the mistakes.
Yeah, Bloody
of Star
Viking. I
Wars
know it was your
Outlaws,
friend's take.
which
I'm not mad at you.
I'm
Don't
all
worry.
for.
I was
Less
just saying.
buggy games, less broken games.
That's
Please,
just my opinion,
bring it
too.
on. Like, I'll preaching to the choir here. I love that. But he also references the elephant in the room, as it were, with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that is all of the scandal surrounding Yasuke as a playable character. Lastly, I'd like to address the recent polarized coverage around our creative choices. Again, translation from corporate doublespeak. This basically just means referring to Yasuke, the playable character that has ticked a lot of people off because we've kind of pretended like it's super historically accurate when in reality we took like a little nugget and then expanded it into
Isn't that what they
this
do
whole
with
thing, and
most
then we just
historically
kinda
accurate
danced around
games?
the
Take a
issue,
nugget
blah blah
and
blah.
then-
That's what he's referring to. As such, our objective is not to endorse any specific agenda. We want to, the fence, we want to sit right there. Our mission has always been to entertain players and enrich their lives with original and memorable experiences that resonate with a global audience. Now, translation of this, after all of it, I take this as them basically just saying, we don't like that you guys are so upset about this, and we're not trying to push any specific agenda, but we can kind of see how that could happen. We really just were trying to appeal to as large of an audience as possible, and we didn't think that this would get as much blowback as it has. The problem is, like, at this point, there is so much toxicity surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows. I don't really know how they could dig themselves out of it.
The game has
without
to be
just
good.
ignoring that stuff and then
Yes.
just focusing on the game. It
100%
probably doesn't
agree.
do crazy pre-order numbers. I'm sorry to tell you, Eve. I just don't see that really
not going
happening.
to.
I think it maybe if the game is really good, it
Yeah.
has some legs, and over the next like 6 months to a year, it sells decently well. But I just think there's so much negativity around it. You're not going to see many YouTubers covering it. You're not going to be seeing many streamers playing it because they just don't want to deal with the drama. They
I
don't
don't
want to
care
deal
about
with
that.
people coming into their comment section and flooding it with go woke, go broke stuff. They just don't want to deal with it. And so they're just not going to bother. Whether they agree or not, it's
a good
just
game, I'll play it. I
an
don't care.
added
Like, if there's
stress
a
that
black
a lot
assassin,
of content
I
creators,
just
a lot
don't
of
care.
reviewers and journalists and news publications, they just
It
don't
just
want to
has to
have
be a good
mess
game.
with it. So they just won't, because you're not releasing the game in a dry period where there's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, that's also true.
You're releasing it next to some other huge games that are going to have lots to talk
true.
about when it comes to them. So I think it's unfortunate that a choice to have like Yasuke as a samurai has turned into such a scandal, and that they've made such basic mistakes with the marketing or with how they framed this by having like the hip hop inspired music whenever Yasuke fights on screen. That type of stuff,
kind of funny,
easily
but-
avoidable. And frankly, I
Yeah.
don't know how those mistakes even get made, but that's
Yeah.
just where we are. That's where we are. It is so competitive in the industry, especially if you're Ubisoft. You cannot afford to make any of these mistakes. You cannot afford to launch your game like slightly buggy and then fix it later. You could have done that maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Nowadays, You just can't. Tolerance is at an all-time low.
I
You
disagree
can't do
with this.
You know, right before I filmed this.
I disagree with this. I disagree with this. You absolutely can do that. And Cyberpunk is an example of that. And yes, it launched a while ago. Yes, it did. But that's a perfect example of a game that did that and succeeded vastly. But it's hard to do.
Video, I was on my podcast, the Free Roam podcast. You should listen to it on Spotify or on YouTube, links below and everything. And I run that podcast with the one and only Joe Raptor, who does a lot of like Ubisoft focused coverage as well. And he had an interesting insight into all of this. To quickly summarize one of his key points that I thought
you never
was
went back to
quite profound,
Cyberpunk, and I bet you there was a lot of people
Ubisoft
who were like that
has
as well.
had an approach after Assassin's Creed Valhalla where they assume that the players are going to come to them, and they don't really need to try that hard to win those players over. They just need to find a way to capitalize upon those players once they've arrived. And to support this, he pointed to Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
They're trying to bank in on the name of Assassin's Creed. Everyone's going to play Assassin's Creed because it's Assassin's Creed.
I know it's easy for people to forget, but AC Valhalla was huge. Yes, it was coming out of lockdowns and everything, but everybody was talking about that game. Everybody was eating it up. Everybody was excited to play as a Viking in basically a hack and slash open world adventure RPG. That sounded awesome. And even though I had lots of problems with the game, I did a multi-hour breakdown of why I think it is a mess in many ways.
Breakdown.
A lot of
That's
people were
impressive.
excited for it. A lot of people bought it just to try it and see what it had to offer. And I think that Ubisoft had the same idea with Shadows. They're like, even if there is some outrage or there are some scandals with it, I think people are going to suck it up and people are going to still buy it. And we'll be fine. We'll just deal with the controversy and move on. But it seems as though executives at some point in the last week were made aware of some data, something or other.
I completely agree with this.
So bad, they decided to pull the plug and delay everything. And again, I would just love to know what those metrics were. Are pre-orders that bad? Is it that there's some major issue or legal issue? I would just love to know. But I guess we'll just have to wait until the reporting comes. But after all of this, my main takeaway is that Ubisoft is in a bit of a panicked state. They are trying desperately to dig themselves out of this Assassin's Creed Shadows shaped hole they find themselves in, and they are trying to find ways to excite
gameplay
players
doesn't look
once
bad.
again. They're doing this by promising that they're going to be polishing the games, that they're going to take a more pro-consumer approach to how they time the release of their games, changing the seasonal pass structure away from pre-order bonuses and early access and stuff and shifting it more towards post-launch content, which I personally prefer over early access. I just think that's better. And they're also doing things like Steam Day One launching on PC, trying to throw gamers little bones that they can be excited over. And I think that those are all great first steps.
Ghosts of Yotai, or however you say it.
Ubisoft at this point,
I think that's coming out later in the year,
go the
though.
route of like BioWare with Dragon Age. They need to find ways to excite the player base again and to win them over, not assume that those gamers are going to show up and buy their games. You can't assume that anymore, especially not Ubisoft. They have to
many
win
companies,
players
Rockstar
over
can do that.
from day one, and that might mean that you don't get to sell 15
Who else can do
cosmetics
that?
in the in-game store on launch day. Maybe
they've earned
you
it.
launch the in-game store a year after launch and you commit to people, no, we're focused on the game being really good. We're not going to monetize the inside of the game later. No XP boosts, none of this stuff. I really hope that they learn from these mistakes and they take that approach. Nobody's rooting for more like layoffs. Nobody's rooting, well, maybe some people are, but those people are nasty. But we should all be, in my opinion, rooting for these companies to figure their crap out. To
Naughty
have
Dog
a
can do it
redemption
too.
arc,
That's another good
to
example.
figure it out and to stop making these mistakes. Because we should all want more good games. We should all want more companies pumping out great stuff because it increases competition and that holds everybody's feet to the fire so that we get better and better games year in, year out. I miss the days when I could reliably count on Ubisoft games being awesome. I miss those days. It's been a while. Because it feels like nowadays you never really know what you're going to get. Are you going to get a quadruple A Skull and Bones, or are you going to get something really cool like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown? You just don't really know what you're getting. And until they can figure out their processes, until they can figure out how to win player confidence back, they're going to keep having these issues. The problem is, I think they're running out of time. And I hope they figure it out, because Ubisoft has 20,000 employees, a lot of wonderful people who work their butts off. And unfortunately, it's just a few dozen executives that seem to be driving most of the difficulties Ubisoft has been faced with. And I think that's really unfortunate. So hopefully this marks a turning point. Fingers crossed. But
Somewhat agree with that.
time will tell. Either way, it is fascinating to watch, because I cannot think of another time that a huge game like this from Ubisoft has been delayed at the last second under kind of mysterious circumstances without the rest of Ubisoft seemingly knowing what's going on. It is crazy. And as someone who eats up the drama, I love it. I can't get enough. It's like reality TV, but better. But that's it for me. Thank you for watching. I love you all. See
Like
you
reality
soon in the
TV,
next
but
one.
actually real.
Bye-bye.
All right, he makes
So the last-
great videos. Great damn video. Oh God, this is gonna be a.
This might sound good with iVoice sound. Kring here, my action man. Take play Assassin's Creed Shadows. Pre-order play as a samurai and kill pre-order stealth around and kill pre-order play are somewhat polished game. Pre-order play the game on Steam. Pre-order, oh wait, never NIMD, no pre-order.
Exactly.